With Hollow Knight Silksong being out for almost 2 months now, and my recent completion of the game with 100%, I find some of this game's design philosophy to be really interesting, and I want to share some of my thoughts here. As of making this video, I have somewhere around 100 hours in this game, and I've genuinely been enjoying Silksong a lot. So many of the issues I had with the original Hollow Knight have been improved upon significantly to make the experience feel that much smoother and better. Yet at the same time, there are still a lot of design choices in this game that feel so weird and really give the impression that Team Cherry didn't learn from some of the biggest mistakes they made in Hollow Knight. I think the biggest thing that everyone playing this game is talking about is its difficulty. Is this game too hard? Do the enemies do way more damage than they should? Is Team Cherry not being considerate of the people who want to just play games to relax and have fun? Or is it the player's fault for being bad? Is complaining about the game's difficulty simply admitting to everyone that you just suck too much to play it? Should Silksong have an easy mode, or does the game not owe you a damn thing? Well, I don't know, but I can at least offer some insight from my perspective. I want to say straight up that I personally didn't find the difficulty an issue in Silksong, like, at all, but this is almost definitely because I put over 1,000 hours into the original Hollow Knight game. I think Silksong's punishing difficulty only helped enhance my experience with the game and make many areas and boss fights feel more memorable after I put a considerable amount of deaths to master them. Again, this is coming from a purely personal perspective, and I know not everyone shares the same view as me. With that being said, let's first take a look at how the bosses in this game are designed and how that may affect an audience's perception of their difficulty. Also, mandatory spoiler warning here, I guess. This video will contain spoilers for Acts 1 and 2, so if you haven't finished those, you probably should before watching, unless you don't care or something. Okay, let's go. I think it's important to acknowledge that this high of a difficulty level is not suited for everyone, and some people just won't enjoy Silksong for how it handles its difficulty. This is fine. Just because Silksong is the new and popular game doesn't mean you have to play and enjoy it. If it really isn't your type of game, then there is no reason you should put time into something you won't feel satisfied completing. Despite that, I think it's reasonable to say that it's way easier to crash out and leave a negative review after dying to the Savage Beastfly's enemy spam attacks for the 10th time, rather than if you die on a well-designed boss fight that encourages you to improve and learn from your mistakes. And that's where it starts to feel that Silksong leans into a certain type of game design philosophy called BS and RNG to make its boss fights harder, rather than actually developing, well-designed boss attacks. By no means should every boss be something spectacular and mind-blowing. For every fast and action-paced fight like the First Sinner, there should be a more underwhelming fight like the Raging Conchfly or the Savage Beastfly. But just because a boss is made to be less spectacular is not an excuse for said boss to be designed in a lazy or just plain unfun way. For the record, I honestly think Hollow Knight is worse in this regard. Many people like to talk about how Pure Vessel and Nightmare King Grim are such well-designed and fun fights, but seem to forget that, every Dream Warrior is kinda just not good. Many of their attacks have the design philosophy of having multiple things moving on screen completely independently of each other, which really just leaves it up to luck if you get a pattern that's easy to dodge or not. That's not even mentioning the other stinkers you have to fight like Umu and God Tamer. I think for every badly made boss in Silksong, there are 3 more in Hollow Knight. Overall, I'm actually really happy how the bosses in Silksong turned out. I think they're a solid improvement from Hollow Knight's bosses, and it makes me want to see a God Home DLC for Silksong so badly. It's just that artificial difficulty is really not fun, and having an entire boss's difficulty rely on spawning annoying enemies across the arena is, in my opinion, not the greatest design, and does seriously harm how enjoyable these fights were. From everything I've seen online, the enemies and areas seem to be some of the most common aspects that are criticized for being too difficult. And honestly, yeah, I see it. I think the absolute biggest issue with Silksong areas and common enemies is just its over-reliance on double damage. A ton of updates are now being rolled out that nerf certain environmental hazards dealing double damage, which honestly was kind of insane that they even dealt that much in the first place. Other than that, the environmental hazards were made extremely well in this game in my opinion. I loved how some areas took an environmental mechanic and made it the entire focus of the area, such as Mount Faye for example. Also, bile water is overhated. Just putting it out there. My thoughts on the enemy designs in Silksong on the other hand are kind of mixed. I really think that many of the enemies in this game are really well designed and are a huge step up from Hollow Knight, and the fact that they are as challenging as they are makes them super fun to fight. But also did they really all have to do double damage? The average moveset of an enemy in Silksong is so much more complex than that of Hollow Knight. They're able to slash, parry, jump, sprint, burrow into the ground, step away from your attack, roll into you, shoot projectiles at you, sometimes they can even stun lock you and steal your rosaries right from your pockets. The enemies are already able to pose a threat from purely their moveset. Having double damage on top of that can really start to feel artificial. Again, I'm perfectly fine with double damage enemies, and I do really like the extra threat that they pose, but maybe we don't need like half the enemies to deal 2 masks per hit. It really starts to feel artificial at a certain point. The abilities and items of Silksong are the biggest mixed bag for me. I want to say right away that I'm a massive fan of tools, and if you're not using them, you really should try them out. With how small of an attack window some bosses have in this game, being able to get a couple of extra hits in with those tools can go a really long way in helping with some of those more tanky boss fights. The way the dash and the double jump were made is a direct improvement from Hollow Knight in my eyes. Being able to move fast through the map without having to mash the dash button is a really good ability to have, and the double jump doesn't have that disgusting down spike that Monarch wings do. I've heard complaints about the bind ability being too hard to use due to its increased silk cost, but honestly being able to heal 3 masks in a single press of a button is super convenient to have. And as much as I hate to say it, the silk spells in this game are honestly a disappointment in comparison to Hollow Knight spells. The biggest thing that really ruins them for me is just the level of delay that some of them have. I would have been using Sharp Dart a ton if it weren't for the 5 billion years it takes for Hornet to charge it up initially. Other spells also have these issues. Silk Spear has a delay, Rune Rage and suspend you midair before any of the spells have even been cast, and the parry ability just seems too gimmicky and situational to use. In Hollow Knight, both the Vengeful Spirit and Abyss Shriek summon the spell pretty much instantly upon inputting, and while Descending Dark has a slight delay, it more than makes up for it with the amount of immunity frames it gives you. And even at that, the delay is barely noticeable if you cast a spell while in midair. It's really hard for me to decide whether the moveset in Silksong or Hollow Knight is better as a whole. Silksong made significant improvements in some abilities, and majorly diminished the value of others through small but noticeable mistakes. So, is Silksong too hard? I don't know, man. I genuinely had no issues with this game's difficulty while playing, and I'm eagerly awaiting the new and hopefully harder content that may be added in future DLCs. Seeing so many people criticizing the game for its difficulty really made me want to analyze the game and look at why that might be the case, and what might have been able to be changed to accommodate for players that simply found the game too frustrating to be worth playing. Maybe it's even a case of too many people playing the game without having even touched the original Hollow Knight. Like, this is a weirdly common phenomenon for some reason, and it really explains why so many people struggle with Silksong. I ultimately think Silksong requires a high tolerance of difficulty and is quite frankly not going to be everyone's favorite game. But I think if you enjoyed Hollow Knight despite everything its difficulty had going, you'll be fine with Silksong. Just don't expect to finish the game without having put some time and effort into it first.